All right, so a lot of important stuff to talk about today, and the first thing I wanted to bring up is out of the portugalnews.com here saying, you know what, PCR test reliability doubtful, Portugal judges. Let's read a little bit about it here. The PCR test is unable to determine beyond a reasonable doubt that a positive result corresponds in fact to a infection of a person by the you know what virus, said the Lisbon Court of Appeal. While the court has deemed the test to be unreliable, medical experts have hit back against these claims, stating the judges have acted irresponsibly in their ruling. The initial decision, which was made on November 11th, related to an appeal by the Regional Health Administration of the Azores following a request for habeas corpus immediate release. The four German citizens who had been forced by the health authority to comply with isolation for 14 days in the hotel room. According to the process, there is no evidence that the diagnosis was actually carried out by a professional qualified under law and who had acted in accordance with good medical practices. These acts are reserved for exclusive competence of a doctor. The only element that appears in the proven facts is the performance of the RT-PCR test, one of which is um, presented a positive result in relation to one of the applicants, reads the document. The judges quoted a paper published in The Lancet by Elena Sorogova. I'm not even going to say the rest of those names, which stated any diagnostic test that should be interpreted in the context of pretest probability of disease. For you know what, the pretest probability assessment includes symptoms, previous medical history, or presence of antibodies, a potential exposure, and likelihood of an alternative diagnosis. When low pretest possibility exists, positive results should be interpreted with caution and a second specimen test for confirmation. So um, it's a pretty long article, so I'm not going to get into it. But again, in a nutshell, they're basically saying that the PCR tests are not reliable. And the one thing that they brought up in that article that medical experts hit back, well, again, medical experts are not, I mean, if they are, they're lying. Because we have people like Fauci and multiple experts that have said, and I think anybody, you don't need to be a medical doctor. This is something that I really can't stand about people is that you point this out to someone and they're like, "Oh, you're not a medical doctor. Who cares what you think?" You don't have to be a medical doctor. The medical doctors have told us this, right? You don't need to be a medical doctor to figure out that if you're not wearing a mask properly, it doesn't work. Like it's such basic common sense. It's not even funny. And again, when people make that argument, I find it very funny because number one, they're usually just confessing that they have lost the debate because if they had a good argument, if they had a better argument than you, then they would just bring it up, right? Like any attempt to silence or to use the argument from a position of authority to cite the people using their credentials as an argument, again, that's almost always a confession that you don't have a good argument, right? It's almost always a confession that you don't have a good argument. And this is the thing too, that if you are a medical doctor and you can't, debate someone who isn't a medical doctor on something, you probably should reevaluate your worldview, like because you've gone seriously wrong somewhere. So again, the main thing, like I say, I was talking about here is the PCR test. So the PCR test, I've heard numbers as low as like 20, as high as like 30 cycles. I think Fauci said 25. And they've said anything above that, you're going to get a lot of false positives. Well, wouldn't you know, every Canadian province is in the range of, I think it's 35 to 40. So we are significantly higher than the threshold to where we're going to get a lot of false positives, right? So this is something that I brought up a lot before. But again, now it's a little different. And we have, countries where their courts have ruled that the PCR tests are unreliable. We had that the doctor that called into was what is it, the Edmonton City Council meeting? I don't remember where it was, but he was an Albertan guy, I think. Um, and that he works for a company. I think he might even run the company that makes tests like this. And he said they're not reliable. They're not reliable. Like again, like I don't understand the big hiccup here. Now, the problem being is that the everyday person has gotten so whipped up into a frenzy over this situation. Like the amount of pearl clutching going on right now is it is absolutely insane the amount of pearl clutching going on. And again, people have been bombarded with so much propaganda that it's not possible to change their minds. Like, it's not possible to change people's mind. It doesn't matter how much evidence comes out against their worldview. Again, it doesn't matter how long we go with cases either going up or being stagnant. People are never going to admit the masks don't work. Like, never going to admit it. Like, never, ever, ever, ever. Like, just imagine if things were the other way around. Just imagine if cases went down, like, you know, more than 10 times, like more than 10 times, over a period of whatever it is now, 4 months of having mask mandates, and then we turned around and told them, oh no, masks don't work, masks don't, like, they would call us insane, and rightfully so, because at least they would have some evidence. Now, again, correlation doesn't mean causation, but again, if you're going to force people to completely alter the way they live their lives, and again, this isn't just people saying, oh, it's just a minor inconvenience. No, wearing a mask for 8 hours a day isn't a minor inconvenience. Come on. And not to mention, too, all the other BS that goes around it, too. And this is the other thing, too, for all the people say, oh, it's just a minor inconvenience. Okay, well, let's have some sunset clauses then. Like, if these people actually believed in what they believed, they would put sunset clauses in all their policies. And anybody with a brain would do that, too, because and I mean, a sunset clause basically means that, for example, we're going to put a mask mandate in for a month, and if the cases don't go down, it automatically expires. I mean, that would be an example of that. So again, the fact that they don't do that just goes to show that they don't actually believe it. It's entirely about control. It's entirely about the government has, given the fact that I think anybody with half a brain knows the lockdowns don't work, even though there's still a lot of people that believe that. They transition to the masks because they need to give people this constant reminder of, oh, you got to be scared, you got to be paranoid, there's this horrible doomsday virus that's upon us, right? This is why they're pushing the mask mandates so hard, right? This is why they're doing, and this is why they're doing this kind of stuff so much. It's oh, everybody's got to go get tested, we got to run whatever it is, 20,000 tests a day in Alberta, wherever we're at. Now, again, never mind that we're wasting over $1 million a day doing those tests. This is another thing that's, I don't know why it's not being talked about more, in that every one of these tests, I think it costs like 40 or $50, right? So if you run 20,000 tests, that's $1 million, right? That's $1 million. And again, that's not including all the extra staff that you have to pay to do all these extra tests as well. So again, we're probably going to be spending billions of dollars in extra money this year, money that we don't have too, by the way, like money that we don't have, like tax revenue for governments is going to be way down this year. Where's that money coming from? It's debt. So again, this is the thing that you need to bring up to these people, is that again, if you want to have that worldview, then you're basically having the worldview that we can literally just print however much money we want to get out of any problem we have in society. But again, that whenever you bring that up to people, they look really stupid, and I think everybody knows that, even though a lot of people think that you legitimately can do that. But again, this is the stuff you got to bring up to people. And again, it is good news that literal countries are ruling that this stuff's unreliable. So again, that is good news. And again, Jason Kenney came out yesterday and tweeted in regards to the anti-lockdown, anti-mask, anti all this garbage going on right now, rally in Calgary, saying very disappointed by the large event in Calgary. It is irresponsible to gather in large numbers, especially at the point of the pandemic. Um, it shows a disregard for healthcare workers and the vulnerable. There are lots of ways to protest government policies without risking viral spread. Now, again, personally, I don't think these kind of protests are the way to go about showing your how mad you are with about this kind of stuff, because you're just going to get stuff like this. I mean, you're going to get it no matter what you do, to be fair. But I think the best way to protest against this kind of stuff is, number one, you got to speak up, and number two, you got to share information of people that are actually speaking the truth. I think that's the biggest thing. The next biggest thing is that in your day-to-day life, you need to do whatever you can to push back against this garbage, meaning, um, don't wear a mask. Wear a mask the least you possibly can, right? Unless they're literally willing to, tase you or do one of any of these crazy things that we've seen in recent times, don't wear a mask, right? Just because there's a sign saying you have to wear a mask doesn't mean you have to. And also the other things too, like gather, like as long as people are voluntarily willing to get together, go ahead and do it. Like this garbage is absolutely insane. So again, basically do whatever you can in your day-to-day life to protest against this kind of stuff. Now, Jason Kenney, like I don't understand what this guy's doing. Like, what are you doing? I think his play here is clearly he wants to pretend like he's this moderate when it comes to this issue. That's clearly his play. The problem is that it's a terrible strategy. It is a terrible strategy. Now, again, is there a clear winning strategy when it comes to this? Absolutely not. There. Now, again, I mean, is there something he should be doing? Yes, absolutely. He should be speaking up against all this garbage, and by that, doing the exact opposite of what he did here. Um, but again, the problem, I mean, you pretty much have three ways of going about this. You have number one, be an authoritarian, push for lockdowns, push for endless mask mandates, throw people in jail or fine them if they get together. The draconian real fascism that the left likes to pretend they're against, even though they support it. That's the one option. The second option is what he's doing right here. It's just blindly play the middle ground, which I think is terrible. Like, at least pick a side. But personally, I mean, like I say, is he really winning anyone over by doing this? I don't think he's winning anyone over by doing this. I really don't. Um, and the third one is actually stand for something, actually have some balls. Say, yeah, there's nothing in the Constitution or the Charter that says, oh, you have the right to, you have all these rights, but unless the government says you don't, right? Unless the government says you don't. No, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Either you have them or you don't. That's not how rights work, right? There's nothing in the Constitution that says you have the right to free speech, unless the government declares a state of emergency or whatever garbage. That's not how rights work. So again, I don't know what his play is here. Like, I really don't. He's trying to blindly take the middle, but what I don't think he seems to understand, or he does understand, in which case I really don't understand what he's doing, is that the there's a large group of people that are going to hate you no matter what you do. If you are a conservative, there is 30-40% of the population that is going to hate you no matter what you do. You could literally adopt their exact platform, but because you have a conservative next to your name, they're going to hate you. So again, I don't understand why he's trying to please these people. I really don't. But again, on the flip side too, what the people that agree with me need to understand too is, I think a lot of people don't understand this, is that if he goes on too much of a hardline stance on this, like someone like me does, the mainstream media is going to be all over him. Like, that's basically what CBC is going to be. Their entire existence is going to be to attack Jason Kenney, right? So again, I understand why he doesn't want to take a hardline stance on this, but why? Like, here's the other thing too. Like, why not come up with a compromise? Be like, hey, you guys can protest, but we want you to wear masks and we want you to social distance. Like, they don't even attempt to do that. Like, they don't even attempt to do that, right? Again, it's just absolute insanity. Again, he has done some good stuff too. Like you have to give credit where credit is due. He has done some good stuff. We if we had pretty much anyone else, the NDP, if the NDP were running us, we would be on full on lockdown right now. We would not be able to leave our house aside from maybe, quote unquote essential stuff, which is pretty much nothing. We wouldn't be able to have social gatherings. We wouldn't, schools would be shut down. Everything would be shut down aside from the big corporations. So again, people do need to acknowledge that. I think that that's important. But again, I don't understand what he's doing here. I don't understand what his play is here. This is from Pundit Class saying the latest scientific advice is there's no asymptomatic transmission. Masks don't work. Lockdowns cause harm, and the only population at real risk is the elderly in communal living situations. So what the hell are we doing? Again, this is just way over some people's head. Like, this is just speaking too much truth that, again, it just goes over people's head, and that the people, the government, I mean, is committed to just doubling down more and more. I think this is the problem with people, is that they would rather have the illusion that they're right, and regardless of how much damage is done by having that illusion that they're right, than just straight up admitting they're wrong and having no damage being done. Because this is the big problem with these. The fundamental error in the other side's point of view on this is that they think that there is a clear correlation between lockdowns and a reduction in cases and a reduction in deaths. But the evidence clearly, it couldn't be more obvious that it shows that that's not true. It couldn't be more obvious. And if it is true, here's what they would need to do to prove me wrong on that one. you would need to get a big massive group of areas, right? You wouldn't tell anyone which areas are which. You wouldn't tell anyone which areas have the most lockdowns, the most mask mandates, the ones that didn't have any of it. You wouldn't tell them that. They should be able to predict which areas had lockdowns, which areas had mask mandates, when they locked down, when they put in their mask mandates. But again, when you look at these charts, when you look at these charts, nobody can tell with a high degree of accuracy which places had mask mandates, which places had lockdowns. Not only that, you can't even come close to telling with a good degree of accuracy, right? So again, this is just the insanity that's going on these days. So anyway, and the last thing to bring up is again just another one of these examples of just blatant hypocrisy from Summit News here saying doctor who demanded mandatory mask law pictured partying maskless on boat surrounded by bikini clad women. Again, like how many of these examples do we need for people to start questioning the narrative? Like if this virus is so deadly, why would all these government officials not be following their own rules? Like seriously, if it was so deadly, they would be following their own rules. And the fact that they're not just goes to show that they don't think that it's that deadly. And here they're clearly privy to information, and at least somewhat, that the public isn't privy to. So again, the insider information they're getting is clearly saying, yeah, this isn't nearly as bad as what we think it is, right? But the fact that these people can, gain so much power, the fact that they can, get up on TV every day and look like they're all cool and all this kind of stuff. Like this is the problem with the everyday person, like I brought up to, is that they radically underestimate just how far some people are willing to go to gain and to maintain power. They radically underestimate that. And again, that is why so many people were killed during in the Holocaust. That is why so many people were killed by communists. That is why so many people were killed throughout history, is because people just have this, they're so naive it's not even funny. Like they're so naive it's not even funny. And it's like I say too, like this is the thing that another thing that I'd like to get a straight answer out of the paranoid delusional tinfoil hat crowd. And that at what point, like how much, sorry, a better way of putting it, how many of these examples do you need to finally start questioning the narrative? Like if literally, like I could probably name at least 10 names off the top of my head of people that don't fall, that have been caught not following these laws. Like if the amount we have right now isn't enough, what would it be? Is 100, is 200, 1,000, 10? Like I would like a number. I would really like a number. And again, the fact that they would dance around that question just goes to show that they're just flat out wrong. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about today. If you liked the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe. If you haven't already, make sure you check out those links below. Follow me on those other platforms. You can donate if you want to do that as well. Again, I appreciate whatever support I can get, but at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe. Stay tuned for more, and have a good day.